it's open.
Sure if I So what were you thinking about? Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. So. Okay, that's a yeah. This is a really cool feature.
All right, everybody, welcome to the pre-draft show for SCUL Season 1. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about the format that we're going to be having going into this. We're going to talk about the individuals that have signed up for this season. We'll talk a little bit about the season itself, but really what I'm excited about is having Keen here in the flesh right next to me in our studio that we built and we are clearly together in to talk about his takes. Keen, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you?
Oh no, I need to double check. Hey, is anyone having audio issues? Hear you because of my fault.
Oh wait.
Hazareth says he can hear me, but I messed up, and now they should be able to hear you. Go ahead and Keen, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, hello. Hey, I'm doing pretty good,
There we
man. How are
go.
you?
I'm doing kick ass.
Um,
I'm so excited for this. I'm really excited that you were able to show up wearing your sim hat, looking like a seagull. And, this is the first time for us. This is the first time that we've had a season. This is the first time that we've done a draft. I have been getting so much hate in my DMs about how everything is being put together. But one thing I haven't received any hate on, and I'm very happy about it, are the team captains that we picked. So, what I wanted to do was get your take on the team captains because, as I mentioned, this being the very first season of SCUL, it's all about setting culture. And there's a lot of mistakes that can happen within the draft, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the one piece of information that everyone knows and is shared across the board are four captains for our four teams. And our four teams are Savage Team, Chaos Team, Unhinged, and Legion. And the captains for those are Mick Terran for Savage, Mutiler for Chaos, Least for Unhinged, and our honorable Legion captain is going to be Manadog, also known as Smut. So what are your takes? I've been kind of talking a lot, but what are your
well,
thoughts on the captains?
okay. I have to smut mud. I've never heard that one before. That's an
You haven't heard
interesting.
that? Yeah,
It's an
that's his given
interesting
name.
AK.
That's
No,
why he has the tag Manadog.
oh, that's his Christian name. Okay. Um, yeah. Honestly, the captain that I'm least familiar with personally is Mutiler, but I have to say, I'm starting to kind of like almost the moment that captains were announced, he just jumps right into my DMs. I have to assume that he DM'd like literally everyone on the list, right? Um,
Really?
and he's like asking me like, where do you see yourself in 6 weeks? Like, what is your activity level going to be like? Blah blah blah. Like as if it's like a job interview, and he's like grilling me about all this stuff. I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't even know you, but that's pretty cool that you're, you're that engaged already. Um, Honestly, like so I think I don't have personal experience with all four of these guys, but like I know Mick Terran, Manadog, and Least have been like mainstays of CPL, and I think they're all roughly like the same skill. So I think they're all great choices. I know Mick Terran has been referred to. I've only heard other people talk about him, but it seems like he is considered a, like a tier two or tier one like terror. Like he's not the tippity top level of CPL, but he's still considered like kind of a sniper. Um, I know Manadog is actually a CPL admin, so he should be a great leader. And Least, we've had our personal differences before. I'm not going to lie, but he is, like I said, he's been involved with CPL for a long, long time. He's probably going to try to draft all of the. He's good friends with Strom Carlin. They have the whole crew on their own server, their own private server, so they are definitely going to have their own distinct team culture. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not really sure what to expect out of their casting, or I mean, sorry, not casting, drafting strategies just yet. But actually, so we didn't discuss this beforehand, but I was wondering, could you go in more in depth into the drafting process?
I am going to. The one thing I want to try to fix real quick is apparently there's mad echo for you. But I think I just fixed it. Go ahead and,
Oh,
and
okay.
talk again. Say like she sells seashells down by the seagull.
She sells seashells down by the seagull.
Yeah, all right. I think we're fixed. No, that was a
Any
great
better?
take on all the captains, and,
Okay.
and I suck at streaming, guys. I'm so sorry, especially with audio. It is horrible and really tough to get fixed, because there's so many hidden inputs and everything. Yo, thanks for all the follows, by the way, guys, and welcome to the very first pre-draft show. So I do want to go into the details here of how the draft is structured, and talk about your thoughts on how the captains are going to attack it. But I do have a question because you brought up a little bit of a personal thing, and those that don't know, and we'll go through the roster as well, but you're actually a player in this league. You're also a pretty strong, high
Yes.
performing player. And so I'm really curious, is there a team that you want to be drafted to?
Um, Honestly, I think I would be okay on pretty much any team. I would prefer to be on a team with like I know Ozzy, for example, who I specifically DM'd you, by the way, just so everyone knows, I DM'd you specifically not to make Ozzy a captain. And
Yeah, we had
because
a lot of
I
people
was
throw
also
their
like,
name
yeah,
in the hat for
I signed up
captain.
because I I think I'm better than all these other captains, so it would be like an immediate advantage. Then Ozzy signs up, so I'm like, I can't. Okay, I gotta admit, like, don't make either of us captain, please. But
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's a
I'm
great
in a
point, and
team in
that
AQR
was
with
something we had to
Ozzy.
balance with picking captains was skill level, because essentially a captain is a free player on a team, right? And so we need to make sure that the skill level goes
Right.
well. So you're saying you don't really care so much about what captain you get as long as you have some people that you play well with, like Ozzy to hockey that you're mentioning.
Yeah, yeah. I need to take another look at because the player roster is huge now. It's almost 100
It's
people
huge.
last I checked, right? So yeah, but there's a ton of people from CPL. I know at least in my CPL team, my private CPL team server, um, as the league was wrapping up, everyone was just saying like, it sucks that we're out of the season and everything, and CPL only happens like once a year, but like SCUL is going to be hype as fuck, so everyone should go join that, and I'm sure other teams followed suit as well. So
Yeah, we definitely got a big flood of people after CPL ended. But let's go ahead and talk about the draft, the structure, because I'm really curious about your thoughts on it. Like you said, you had tossed your hat in the ring for captain as well. And so there's a lot of options for preparation and a lot of strategy that can be included. And we'll take a look at the rosters, or not the rosters, but the free agent pool afterwards, which you mentioned is huge. I think we have 82 players. Or no, 88. We had 88 players, not counting captains, sign up. So there's going to be 92 eligible players to go into this. So let me go ahead and take everyone over here to the big screen. Shoom! Here we are on the big screen. And let me go ahead and zoom in because this looks absolutely horrible. But I want to talk a little bit about the structure of the draft. Now, there was another video that was put out a while ago talking about how this draft was going to work. I think that this is the best way to present it. I'll zoom in and out on the pertinent details as we talk about it. Um, but it's going to be pretty interesting and pretty fun because if you don't know or you're unaware of how SCUL is going to be ran, the whole idea behind the league, before we get into the draft structure, is that it's a franchise league, that the teams are meant to stick. And season after season, the season structure may change, but the players and the culture and the team names and everything associated with that team essentially operates like a clan over a long period of time. Now, in order to make things even more interesting, there's an internal economy utilizing SCU bucks, which you can get awarded, which you can use to draft players, trade players, and eventually we can add more complexity once we get a couple seasons under our belt and use it for Gamba and all these other things. So, with that being said, the draft is actually going to be using starting SCU bucks from the teams, which you can see up here starts at 1,000 per team. So that's starting funds. Now, another thing about SCUL is, well, I think that pretty much sums up the overall purpose. Long-lasting teams, they awarded SCU bucks, and there's also prestige, right? And we'll talk the prestige system probably in another time. It's a little outside the scope of this, but your team's legacy carries on from season to season. So talking a little bit about the draft structure. So the captains have been preparing. As you mentioned, I think Manadog reached out to you and was like, "Hey, yo, if I pick you, you're gonna play." Right? Like they're taking this pretty seriously. And I've got a chat with them and they're talking about strategizing and even poking holes in like the economy because this is the first time we've done it. They're like, "Hey, if we do this, this isn't gonna work." And I'm like, "You're right. Let's fix that." But this is how it works. So when we show up tomorrow, 24 hours from now, it's going to be a very serious, very like buttoned up, boom, 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 boom. We got to get through this because there's a million players. So we have the free step one in the draft. Free agent list order will be randomized prior to the draft. This no longer is a thing. Sorry, I needed to edit that. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to use marbles to determine the team that starts with the blind. And I'll explain, the blind gets explained later on. Marbles is this system here where you shuffle everything up, you hit start, and it randomly generates
Right.
who is going to be the first team that starts with the blind. Marbles, a fan favorite, and definitely how we solve all problems in the StarCraft community. Once the blind has been assigned
Yeah, I've
to
seen that on
the
Twitch
starting
before. That's
team.
fun.
What's that?
Oh, I've seen this on Twitch before. That's really fun.
Yeah, and
I've
I
never
love
played
playing
it before,
marbles
though.
games, just pick up games with people and stuff like that. It's a good time. But then the draft will start, and the team that started with that blind is going to nominate a player to be bid on, right? So what that looks like is, let's say Savage team starts with the blind. They have to, and I hope they come with their homework done. They're going to pick one of these players, right? They may even pick you to get thrown in there and be bid on, right? So let's go ahead and just go through like one. Let's say they pick you from the pool and you're the first one up. Okay, what's the next step? The next step is teams submit bids for the player being drafted individually to the draft admin, which will be myself, within 1 minute. So after the nomination happens, I have this timer over here and we start it. And they have 1 minute, and each captain is going to DM me their bid for that player. Now remember, they have their starting funds, right? 1,000. So from the minimum bid of $10 to $1,000 is what they can bid on that player. Okay, cool. So let's say they all go through their bids. I then populate the table with the bids. Let's say, oh, I guess I put you way down here. Let's go back up to the top. Let's say we got 10, Savage didn't really want you, put the minimum bid. We got 50, we got 30, and we got 20. Okay, those were the bids that came in. What happens next? After that, the team that's closest, and this is the interesting part, and this has been a nitpicky part, and I'm curious about your opinion on it, but this is something I put in there, is that the team closest to the 75% of the maximum bid gets the player. Now, the reason I did this was because the economy has a lot of risk of inflation, and teams that do well through a season accruing more SCU bucks, and there being a runaway team after about 4 or 5 seasons. This means that a team that's super rich can still get whatever player they want, but it's going to cost them dearly. It's going to cost them a lot of SCU to actually guarantee a draft pick. It also means that the people you're bidding with, it's almost like poker, right? You have to evaluate that player accurately to understand how much they want them, their bidding habits, and how much you need to put, right? So in this case, the team closest to 75% gets the bid. So in this case, 75% of 50 was 37.5. The closest bid to that was $30. Boom. Keen, congratulations. You're on Unhinged team with your boy Least. Okay, now, in the event that there was a tie, the team with the blind or the team next up in order of the blind gets the player. So, if there was a tie, and let's say Savage team, and Unhinged both tied, Savage team has the blind, they end up getting you, right? But let's say the tie didn't have anything to do with S. Let's say they were back here at 10, and let's say this was the 50 bid, and this was the 30 bid. Then the tie that would be next in order, once the blind is set, it moves one at a time in SCUL order. So C would get you as the player because they're closer to the blind. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We're going to run through this because this is going to take a long time. Okay, so boom, you've been picked up. In the event no one bids, they run out of time or they don't want the player, the team with the blind pays the minimum draft and gets the player. This will come up later in the draft as funds start depleting and people are getting a lot more picky and they don't want to draft super high. The team with the blind will just automatically get the player and have to pay the minimum bid. Now, drafting stops for a team once their max player count is reached. We want these rosters to be started on an even footing. So there's 88 players to be drafted. Each team will leave with 22. All players will be drafted, and specific to the first draft, a team may have to continue drafting once they've run out of money if they haven't met their max player count. So in a world where someone drops $1,000 and they've picked up Keen, well, they still need 21 additional players. And we can't break the league right off the bat because they ran out of money. So they'll go in debt and continue to bid minimum until they get all of their roster filled. Now, in the event of an accidental overdraft, minimum draft, okay, we'll be fine, blah, 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 blah. So this is just some other simple things along those lines. But that's the overall structure. So that's kind of the once around the world on the structure. What are your thoughts now with the captains approaching this? And how would you approach it, Keen? Like, it's kind of complicated.
Yeah. So, well, I like the 75% rule. That's really interesting, and I think that makes it way more interesting than just bidding, because I was worried about this system. Um, Obviously that each team has to have 22 players, so I was thinking it would just make sense to like bid insanely high on like Doodle, for example, or Wolfix, um, and then like you're going to get 22 other players, 21 other players anyway. So why not just go crazy high? But this that's an interesting mechanic. It gives an incentive to think a little more strategically about it, for sure. And I mean, that basically would have been my strategy going into it, for sure. Is just bid super high on the best players, and then let the rest of the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, right? Like, just
But
get the
one
star
question I
power on
do
your
have,
team.
though, is with the yeah. One question I have regarding the debt, though, is, so what about like if long term teams are still in debt because they go bust like really quickly? How would that
Yeah.
be resolved?
So there's going to be injects of SCU at the end of every season. And it's going to be relatively easy to get enough money to likely get yourself out of debt. The biggest risk mitigation that's in place for that is the captains have been instructed to not go in debt. So it may happen by accident to a small extent, but I would be very shocked if any captain actually goes out there and slaps down $1,000 bid on a player. Now, to add to that, I think what's important is we also talk about the format of the season, because you were talking about your strategy and you were saying like, okay, if this was the draft mechanism that we were working with, I would do everything I could, maybe 75% rule aside, to just get like those two or three best players I can. Get that Wolfix, get Doodle, get, semis in here, get Nesh, right? There's a lot of really good players sitting in this player pool. Let's grab all of them up. Well, let's look at the format, and then let's come back to this, and I want to see how your strategy might change. So if we look at the format, the overall format, and you can see here, is that it starts off with 3 weeks of round robin. Okay, and so for round 1, we'll have Savage versus Chaos and Unhinged versus Legion. All of these matches are going to be best of 3. Now, every team needs to field 10 players each. So almost 50% of their roster is going to have to play. Now, hey, thanks for the follow, Crather. By the way, check out Crather's YouTube. He's recently started it, and he casts a bunch of SCU matches, the money tournaments that we host. He's been doing a great job. Show him some love. So anyway, 10 players per team. Now in the round robin, best of 3 series, each team will get a score after every week, and their score is going to be map wins, right? So it's not just the series win. Every player is trying to scrape by as many map wins as they can during their series to get points for their team. Okay, now this continues for 3 weeks, and after every team has played each other once and gotten all the points that they can, then they go into the finals bracket. I also want to mention how players are picked. So during the round robin, what will happen is at first, when there's no seeding, right, it'll be randomly generated. And let's just say Savage wins the marbles or the coin flip. They will decide who has to put up the first player. they'll likely say Chaos. We won the flip. Let's see who your first player is. Chaos is going to submit their first player, right? Let's say they put Wolfix, right? Big, scary, really good Terran. They now have to put the next 2 players. So there's some strategy here. Oh, maybe I want to put Doodle, right? Or maybe I want to put Manshark and save my really good player for later on down the list, right? So they put a player and then they put another player. And it goes on. Then the next team will bounce back with 2 additional players until the entire roster is filled. So that's how players will be picked. Okay, so after the round robin, and this really matters, right? The map wins count towards your points. And at the end of this, all of your points stacked up count towards your seeding. Now we go into the final bracket, and this is what it looks like. It's a gauntlet style. And the reason behind this is it makes seeding matter. If you leave in seed 1, you're at the finals, right? You're at the finals and you're waiting to see who can climb up this ladder to face you. Seed 2, you're at the semifinals, right? You're already in 3rd place. You're waiting who rises from seed 3 and seed 4. So the last seeded teams, they're going to face off against each other, and the format's changed a little bit. This time, it's going to be 5 best of 3s. And then as many best of 1s necessary to meet the map win goal. So with this, the player selection will be the same, right? The higher seed will have the choice of who has to submit a player first, and it'll go back and forth. But you'll notice the deciders. In order to win a level in the gauntlet, you have to reach 10 map wins for your team, right? So what this may look like, we go 2-1, we go 2-1, we go 2-1, we go 2-1, we go 2-1. Oh no, this seed 4 hasn't actually won with their first 5 players. They need another win, and that's where these deciders come in, right? So the deciders will be played at the same time as the top 5 series, and there's a world here where this happens. So the deciders are then counted in order, right? So it starts at the top. So this puts them at 7, 8, 9, 10. All of a sudden, seed 3 wins over seed 4. Even though maybe this was played Monday and this was played Tuesday, you still got to wait for all the games to be played. Whichever team hits 10 first in order wins the gauntlet layer. And then they move up, and it's all repeated, right? So with that format in mind, what do you think about the draft methodology? Like, how would you attack this now? Do you think that is a like enough depth where you can still focus on that star power, or are you thinking a team full of maybe like your C and B players is the way to go?
Yeah, so this is kind of an issue. This has been like a perennial issue with CPL, right? Is like tier 0 is, you have a bigger and scary player like Dragon or Ret or whatever on your CPL team, and it looks intimidating. But tier 0 is only 3 matches a week, and the meat of CPL is really the like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 players. And so I think it would be very silly to throw all of your money on a few really, really good players. I do think that prioritizing kind of the like mean potatoes, like tier 1, probably like 1,600 to 1,900 players would be the best bet. And obviously that requires a lot of kind of captain research on their own too, because I mean, I'm actually shocked at how many names on this sign up sheet that I don't know. And I thought I knew everyone
Yeah.
in the StarCraft community, right? But yeah, so these guys better be looking up these people's seawalls. I would probably definitely try to rank them according to their CPL tier, which I think has its issues, but is overall pretty accurate. Um, yeah, I would definitely be looking to get the majority of my team at least above C rank, and then I feel like I would be in a pretty good spot. Especially, I really like the fact that lineups are going to be done in that snake fashion, which BWCL used to do this. It would
Oh, really?
it's kind of turned into a little bit of, well, actually, no, I guess they still do. They used to, they used to have captains just both submit them at the same time, but
Mm.
that was a really bad method too, because captains would like kind of just wait like a second after one of them posted the lineup and then like change one thing and post theirs like a few seconds late,
Oh
like
man.
a game of chicken. But this allows you to. I like the fact that you can throw someone under the bus and just tank the star player potentially. I like the strategy that adds. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
it's really
that'll be
interesting, and
really
I'm
good as far as. Sorry, I was just going to say that's great as far as strategic depth a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really curious to see how the captains attack it. And I wanted to pause real quick and just thank Harry. Thanks for the follow. Escalade. Thank you so much for the cheer and for saying that you are that you like fingering in your dark room. I don't know what that means, but I hope you're talking about hand stretches because hand health is no joke, gamers. Okay. Also, there's been a couple questions in the chat, and I think they're important questions, and I want to go back and touch on it. Mevius, you mentioned that there are worlds where you won't hit 10 wins. You're absolutely correct, right? Um, there's ways where a team won't hit 10 wins, either team, within the 10 games. When this happens, which I think will be rare, but if it's not, we may have to make some adjustments. But the season has been projected to take 6 to 8 weeks. And the reason being that if neither team hits 10 map wins, we continue adding deciders, right? So I'm going to try to just off the top of my head find a way for that to happen. Probably add some zeros here, add some twos. Actually, that's probably the best bet, right? Just do a bunch of zeros. And then let's say these guys just go on a freaking roll, right? So in this case, there would be a max number of 4 additional games needed. So what we would do is we would give the teams another week and we'd give them 4 more decider matches with a sequence in order, and then they would play them, right? Uh, there should not be a way to have a tie with the deciders because they're counted in order. The sequence matters, right? So, no, you can't have a tie. Because the deciders are counted in order, you'll never have a tie. Because someone will hit 10 before someone else.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
really seeing how there
anyway,
would possibly be a tie here.
there shouldn't be. Unless I've drastically screwed something up, but I really don't think so on this portion. A lot of people have argued some things, and we've made a lot of changes to this. We ran like a test league and everything. This portion I think is going to work, but it might take an additional week depending on the numbers. So that was a really good question, and that's how that plays out. So, okay, so we've talked. We know that the strategy may need to change to not just hedging all your bets on the star players. So one thing we know the format, we know the draft rules. When you're approaching this draft, I think what I'm most interested about tomorrow when the captains start this is what the first few nominations are going to look like. So how would you approach the first few nominations? Because in my eyes, you don't know how the room's going to be bidding. You don't want to waste your blind, but you also want to get a feel for things as this is kind of a wonky way of doing a draft. So how would you approach it?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing, first of all, that there's not going to be like live bidding. It's just going. I think that's a pretty interesting feature. Well, not live bidding in the sense that it's not going to be like people just yelling over each other or whatever. It's
But they
going to
don't
be
know
like
each
a
other's
time thing.
bids. Yeah.
Um, right. Yeah. So, with that feature, it's kind of interesting because it's obviously usually with a draft, like the best players go first. But I honestly think it might just start with almost anyone. Like it might just be like least once Strom Carlin or Shafir or something who are are just friends but not the best players. So there's really no harm in doing it that way, and then kind of waiting and just testing the waters, taking some kind of cheap picks first and seeing how it goes, and then seeing if you can maybe beef up your roster a little bit while still keeping a significant amount of funds. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I would probably still try to get like a player that I was friends with, but I knew is also decent. Like I feel like there are some value picks here which might be kind of not quite as highly valued as maybe they should be. Like Killa Ace, for example, or Hazrath are like two players I know. I was in a CPL team with Killa. He's super active. He would also be like a value pick in the sense that he's like a pretty decent player. He's like a B rank Zerg. So he could definitely net you some wins. But his activity is like an extra value added on top of that, just because he's going to be like in the team channel practicing with people, you know, giving people tips and so on. So you definitely want people like that. Like I mentioned earlier, Mutiler. I don't know if he was sending out these DMs to everyone, but he did send one out to me, and I think it might be because I have a reputation of being a bit inactive, just a little tad inactive. But so he's like, maybe I heard you're like a decent player, but I want to make sure you're actually going to be playing.
Yeah,
So that's something to be taken into account.
these are great points. And I think you're right. And I think Mueller's on the right track with reaching out to players and seeking like, what's your activity level going to be, right? Like, you got a vacation coming up. Like, are you going to be out of the country for the next few weeks? Because I'm kind of counting, my SCU bucks and trying to allocate and wondering where you're going to end up. And I like your point about not just the activity during the games and being able to net some wins, but also building that culture in your team channel, right? Which is a big part of what this league is trying to generate, which is a long-term league with franchise teams where each team has their own individual culture. And having a team like we see this in CPL, right, where everyone's very active and practicing all the time, kind of creates a rising tide that like rises all ships, right? Like your worst player, your lowest tier, your least experienced player is going to only get better by having that kind of activity. So there's value outside of just netting those wins, and I think that's really interesting. I think, to your point as well, in the early bids, I would agree. I think that early on, my strategy would to be feel out the room, understand how everyone else is bidding, and maybe pick someone in like the bottom third or bottom 50 percentile, right? Maybe not like the worst player that you might have perceived as the worst player in the free agent pool, but someone maybe in the middle or the bottom half where you're not upset to lose them and you're really just gathering information from what the other teams want. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would also be trying to think about because if I were to look at this, I think a couple things are going to happen. We're going to have like the information gathering stage, right? That's going to be like the first 15 to 20 draft picks. Then we're going to have the okay, I've spent a good amount of money. I think I understand the room. There's going to be the let's go for the key players. And then there's going to be everyone that's left over, which strangely enough, I think is going to be like the mid tier players. I think we're going to see a lot of the lower ranked players go first, maybe a couple mid tier players sprinkled in there. um, there's a typo apparently. Thank you, chat. You guys are the freaking amount of times Mevius you spell check me. It's so
Oh
annoying,
man,
but you're
yeah.
always right. Anyway, typing's not my forte,
When you
but I
said that, I
think
was
that
like, it
that's
has
going to
to be
be kind of.
Mevius.
Of course, it was Mevius. I saw the correction before I saw who did it, and I was like, of course, it's Mevius. But yeah, I think it's going to be this kind of weird band of players that are good, but maybe not top picks. Then your really top picks, and then like the mid tier. And I think the end is going to get pretty nasty. I think the bidding is going to get really competitive here towards the end, and I think that we're going to see a lot of the craziness in the picks happen in bids 70 to 80, 88, right? So I don't know. I'm really excited about it. I'm really curious about it. There was another point I wanted to bring up as well There was the players, the bidding, how it was going to go. Freaking A. Oh, that's what it was. I wanted to ask. So you know all these other players, and you know that with the 75% bidding rule, that there is a good amount of volatility, and you know you're not going to get everyone you want. You may not get um, the mid-tier players and the star players that you want. If you were to approach your team of 22 players, how would you break it up? Like what would success look like for you if you were a captain? Would it be I got 10 star players, I got 5-star players, I got 3-star players, but I got a bigger amount of mid-tier players? Like what is success? Like if you were drafting and you left, what would you be happy with? Like your minimum, I'm okay with this.
So I would probably go for like maybe two or three of the top level players, and then just try to fill out my ranks with like that solid mid tier. I would prioritize activity more than anything. I see. I just wanted to mention. I see Father here in the chat. I was actually kind of thinking him as a value pick, but he's a little bit of a double edged sword. Just want to throw it out there because while he is very active and he's a solid B rank Terran, um, also talking about team culture, you would have to have him on your team just whining every single day about
Oh
how
my
Terran is
gosh,
so
Keen.
hard and it's impossible to win. So that's also
Calling
something
people
to take into
out. Poor
account.
father
But
catching strays right now. He's got the laugh in the chat. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
yeah, I think honestly, I feel like having people that you know are going to be active and people that you know are going to kind of like play well together and generate that team culture over the long run would be probably even better than just straight up winning and creating a team of like only S rank players or whatever who might not spend as much time playing with the rest of the
Yeah,
team, because yeah, like you were saying, it really does affect the whole team. I saw it this season with CPL. We had this core of players who were just on Discord like every night playing together, and the tier 4 and tier 3s that were practicing and grinding every night, they improved so much. And I mean,
yeah.
honestly, that's what it's all about anyway. So I'm not trying to discount winning, but like seeing players improve like that is really important. So yeah, I would definitely prioritize getting that kind of like mid section of like good C and B rankers that are really active and looking to improve.
I think so as well. I think so. And I
Especially,
like your point about, go ahead.
I was just going to say like, especially since you with the draft or the draft system per week, like you know like you said, we could throw Man Shark out versus Wolfix, so
Yeah,
we could kind of
right? Like there's
devalue
plays like that, and
those
you could
roster
save your good
placements a little
player.
bit.
Yeah, because if let's say let's pick a player and just say they're the best, right? Regardless of what they are. I haven't looked too deep in the free agent pool, but let's say Wolfix is the best, or Semi's the best, or whatever the case is. Doodle's the best. So let's say that player gets put out there. You don't want to put the second best player against them, right? You want to put your second best player against the third best player, because you know that first player is going to get the wins, right? So you want to use your best player to knock out their best player, not lose your best player's wins against theirs. If that made any sense, I felt like that episode of Friends where I was just like, they don't know what we know, what they know, they know. But like that's kind of the strategy there. So you can use the Man Shark level players, right? Lowest MMR on SCU, and toss them against the Wolfix Doodle semis or whatever, and save those higher ranking players to knock out their mid tiers, right? And net more wins overall. So I think that that's going to be really interesting. And you were talking about activity level, and there's almost a correlation between skill and activity. You see this in CPL a lot. A little bit of a different environment, a little bit lower MMR, lower tier player development kind of emphasis there. But you see a lot of the tier 0 players, like they're not always interacting, right? They're just kind of doing their thing. They play their matches and then they go off and enter different tournaments and stuff. Are there any players that are stars on this list that are also high activity that you would prioritize? And I guess a better way to word that is, who are the 3 to 5 hot picks in this list that you think are going to be the most competitive during this season?
So that's an interesting question, and I'm just going through the list one more time right now. I'm so one other consideration I was going to mention is that, and this has historically been an issue with CPL, is time zones. So it might behoove a captain to, like, if they want some European players, to try to make mostly a European team. Because I'm looking at like Wolfix right now, who is both one of the highest skilled players on this list, and he's also a huge asset because he is always willing to help players out. He has a fabulous YouTube channel where he makes videos about Terran builds and strategy, and so in that regard, he's really a great asset to have on a team because he will both net wins, individual wins, and help other players improve. But he is Polish,
All
so
right, hang on a
he
second.
might
You
not always
can't
be
hear
honest
it.
in
You can't hear it, but we got a Tangia going over us.
Okay.
Thank you, Staged, for the donation and letting everyone know that we're going to take them back to school. All right, continue your thought, Keen. You were talking about Wolfix.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, I was just going to say,
Am I a joke to you?
someone like that might be a little problematic because he's not going to be able to be on at the same hours as the rest of the team. But like, I would say Wolfix is probably one of the top picks because, like I said, not only is he very skilled, but he is willing to help. Semi is an interesting pick because he is incredibly skilled.
All right, guys, I'm going to mute the Tangia. Hold on. I'm going to let the squeaky shark play. It's way too loud. All right, that was fun. All right, keep going. You were talking about who was the next player you said?
Semi. So Semi, it would be a great asset. He is a little less active than the other top players. Still very good, but I know he was. I think he was personally helping Ziggy, for example, who I'm surprised not to see on this list. Actually, I'm shocked that he
Ziggy
didn't sign up.
Stardust?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But yeah. Anyway, I think he helped Ziggy a lot, and Ziggy improved greatly this season. So Semi would be great just in terms of like having a kind of coach figure. Um, a lot of pretty good players on here. I think maybe possibly the best player skill wise on this entire list. I think might be Doodle, which is saying a lot because there's some killers in here. But yeah, Doodle is an interesting pick because he could probably beat any other single player on this list, but he's also he does do a lot of coaching on CPL, but maybe it's just because I'm not as active on the CPL server itself, but he seems to only play with like PBJT and Pandor and like not really play that much with other people. So I don't know
Well,
how much he
Pandor's
would
on
be
this
helping
list too.
the team practice.
So
Oh, I
maybe
didn't even
having
see
both
that.
of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pandor, another very skilled player and very knowledgeable. So yeah, I would pick I would try to pick a very skilled player who would also I know be willing to help out. Like Radley, for example, on this list is kind of a question mark for me because he's kind of a strange guy, not the most well liked in the community because he can be kind of uh,
We got to be nicer, Keen. We got to
you
be
know
nicer.
not a nice person, not a nice person, but yeah, also very strange play style. So I don't know how well he would do as far as coaching. Um, yeah, I think semi Wolfix players like that would be the most valued picks.
Okay, so gun to your head.
I got off on kind
Who's
of
your
a
top
tangent there.
three?
My top three, if I was a captain, I would go for Wolfix, Semi, and Ozzy because I think they're both very active. Ozzy and Wolfix are active, and all three of them would coach a lot, and they're also just my friends. So
Yeah. All right. Now, gun to your head. I don't know. Maybe you kind of play in different circles. But who would be like your three mid-tier picks? Your up-and-coming talent, the ghost picks in the list, where if captains have been paying attention, right, they know that these are the players that are going to be the future Wolfixes, going to be the future semis and Aussies that you think could be developed or secure some wins in that middle band in the roster because they got to go down 50%, right? Like we've mentioned, I think you name dropped like 6 players. You spread that across 4 teams. There's going to be a lot of these mid-tier picks. So who are you thinking for that?
I for mid tier picks, I would go with I think Killa Ace, who I've already mentioned. Um, he's like a solid, like mid B rank player. I think very active. Um, I would I would actually pick Father, even though he has a pretty negative attitude at times. He's been very active, and I think he has a lot of potential. Just a complete grinder. And Yakub, who is a pretty decent,
Yeah.
like mid B rank Protoss. Also, full disclosure, just a friend of mine. So yeah,
But that matters,
I
right?
think. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when you look at these captains, right? Like we know your takes. You have kind of the mid tier, high tier picks. The rest will kind of fill in as filler players, etc. And they're going to have to be used because of the nature of the tournament style. But looking at these captains, do you think that there's any captains um, that might pick differently, right? Or might approach this differently based on their friendships? Like, who would you think is going to pick most like you? Or who do you think is going to pick the least like you? Based on kind of that psychology you had, right? Like you want active players, you want the top players, but you want the top players that are going to coach the other players and have that culture. And then you also want the mid-tier players that are your friends, right? Like this is a league, it's for fun. We want to have fun while we do it. So, who do you think kind of matches your list the most and who do you think might stray from it the most?
So like I mentioned, least I know he has a lot of friends just in general on this list that happen to be a little lower skilled. So I feel like he might sacrifice some skill potential in order to get all of his friends on his team. Um, I don't really know much about Mictarian and Manadog's strategy. Mutiler, like I said, Mutiler reached out to me and was actually trying to figure out, which I didn't answer honestly, really. Sorry, Mutiler, but um,
This
it
is
seems
how he
like he's taking
finds
it very
out.
seriously.
I think they all are.
um, yeah, so I know for sure Mutiler is taking it seriously. I feel like this is the most reasonable way to go about it, especially with the bidding uncertainty and so on. So I would say Mutiler, I guess. But yeah, judging by the fact that you mentioned they're all in a channel talking through this stuff already, makes me feel like
Yeah,
they're all probably going to have a pretty similar approach.
maybe.
Honestly, the
Or they could
biggest
just be seeing
variation
how the others are
might
approaching.
be, yeah, I feel like the biggest mind game might just be like getting a read on how high people are going to bid for certain players and like is one guy just going to be going totally nuts or what, like, yeah, that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are approaching an hour, and so I'm going to take us back to the big room where we can sit next to each other and I can smell your seagull smell. Boom, there we are.
Yeah, just like the ocean, baby.
Just like the ocean, right? Man sharks and seagulls. I think it's a shame that seagulls weren't named bagels. Just saying. You see them in like San Francisco Bay all the time. They could have been bagels. So we've gone over the draft structure. We've gone over the league structure. We've talked kind of how you would approach it. We know some of the captain's tendencies, right? There might be some sacrifice to build a culture that they want, have their buddies all playing together, so that win or lose, it's still a great time. We also know that there's differences in activity. We also know there's loose cannons, right? As you were mentioning, you're like, hey, there's players on this list I've never even heard of, and I would agree, right? I've got a pretty good read on a lot of these players from SCU and the tournaments that we hold, but after CPL ended, there was a wave of people, and I'm like, I don't know who any of you are. I don't know what your skill level is. They've all kicked my ass. I know that much because there's been a bunch of brackets, and I'm just losing left and right to all these people I've never met before. But I think that, going in, I think it's important that we make predictions and we decide without any evidence what teams are going to end up on top. And we can kind of approach this later on if we keep doing this show in between seasons and we check progress and we see how these players are doing and the storylines are unfolding. Who and we can go by captain name or team name. Let's go by captain name. What do you think the stacking is going to be at the end of this draft? Who do you think is going to have the best draft, and who do you think is going to have the least desirable draft after tomorrow night?
Oh man. Well, before I begin, I see Escalade in the chat asking about who the worst pick might be. Should I entertain this question, you think?
No,
Or
I really don't. I think we've already been too mean
okay.
to a couple players already. It's not really the vibe I'm going for. I don't want to call out the worst players.
Okay. So I feel like Manadog, I think, has a lot of experience running CPL, and I think he might have a really good handle on just like the activity level and skill level of all of these players. I'm assuming all the ones that I'm unfamiliar with, because I've also been active in SCUL for a while. So all these names that I'm unfamiliar with must have come from CPL, right? So I feel like Manadog or potentially Mictarin, who I believe is, I don't know if he's a CPL admin, but I know he was really active in some like lower level leagues. So I think he probably knows a lot more of these players. Yeah, so I feel like Manadog or Mictarin might have the best bet in that regard. I think I'll just throw out Manadog because he's an actual admin, so he's in the thick of it.
All right, Manadog at the top of the power rankings.
Teams, it's really hard to predict.
It's an absurd question to ask. There's no evidence whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no players on a team yet, so I really don't know. But I think Manadog is poised to do well.
Okay. I think, and you know what? I do have to give a shout out to Manadog, because as many times as he's made me yell at my phone, yell at my computer screen over nitpicking every single piece of this league format, he's definitely dissecting it. His suggestions have made meaningful changes. And I think that you're right. Like his admin experience, especially with CPL, he's been in the scene for a bit. He knows the players. He knows their skills. He knows who's active, who's not. He is also familiar with just league play, right, and player tendencies. I think he's probably a pretty good pick with at least approaching with a coherent strategy the draft, right? We'll see how the players do, right? Because once he has them, then it becomes like a leadership thing, right? And a talent management. But at least when it comes to the draft, I would agree. I think I'm gonna align with your power ranking rank for number 1 Manadog.
Yeah, number 1 Manadog, number 2 everyone else tied.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. After you said it, I was like, yeah, there's really no point in going through every single list. I think identifying the top prediction is probably the best bet. Well, that I think does it for us. Is there any other thoughts that you want to mention? Any shout outs? Do you want to yell at anyone in chat? You want to call someone out on the list?
I'll call it Escalade for being a little instigator with that.
He is. He always escalates everything.
I don't have anything else to say really other than thank you for doing this. I like the idea. I like that there's another league to fill the gap after CPL, because CPL takes so much time to run. The admins are just pooped after every season, so it only happens like once a year. I'll give Flash a shout out just because he asked for one.
I saw that too. If you didn't, I was going to. I was like, yeah, and Flash. Whatever.
I've been involved in SCUL for quite a while now, for better or for worse, in my activity level, not a reflection on you. Um, a little too many, rock paper
Nash,
scissors
thanks.
losses or wins, but um, and I like the fact that teams are going to stick together for a while, and it'll be kind of like
Yeah.
a Brood War clan league sort of thing. I think that'll be interesting to watch, and how teams, become friends, practice partners, and how that evolves over time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks for doing this with me. I think, time permitting, what I'd like to do is do this periodically, right? We came together, we looked at the pre-draft. We're going to have the draft tomorrow night, 23 hours from now. We're going to be doing it live. And that one's going to be a little bit more buttoned up because we've got 88 players to go through, and it could take we've gauged it between 90 minutes and 2 hours of going through everyone. That's going to be a phenomenal time, but it's going to be kind of tiring, and I'm sure the captains are going to be smoked after it. After the draft, we're going to get everyone in their roles. They're going to have their team chats all unlocked that are already built out in the Discord server, ready for them to show up. And but I think every week or every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we come back together, we check the power rankings, we reevaluate what we've seen from the draft and moving forward. We talk about the developing players, and we watch these stories unfold, and we kind of archive it in real time and make our predictions. I think would be a lot of fun. Also, like interviewing players, stuff like that. And on that topic, if we had to interview Escalade, and I were to make him a derpy cartoon like I did to you, what would the derpy cartoon be for Escalade?
Oh, I think he would have to be like a big, boisterous, like Frenchman with like a handlebar mustache that twirls around.
like a melodramatic villain or something. Like he just tied up a damsel to a
Yeah,
railroad
yeah, that sounds
while
about
eating
right.
like poutine. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, everyone, that's going to do it for tonight. I do just want to thank everyone for the follows and the support. We are at, I wanted to let everyone know, we're at $47.91 towards our $50 goal for firing off money tournament number 3, right? So we've had one money tournament. Wolfix took it all. We changed the prize format. Now top 3 is getting money, and that tournament's underway. Crather, who was in here, is doing a lot of those casting. It's up on his YouTube. Hazarath, thank you so much. That should actually put us really close, if not over the line, to fire off tournament number 3. I think the constraint now is just getting enough level 3 players up and in there. But yeah, it's been a really great
Yeah,
time, and the community's been doing wonderful with it.
if I may, shout out to
Yeah.
Brood War bracket 54 guys. Let's get this going so I can get back to level 3.
Yeah, I saw you in the chat rushing it. You're like, come on, guys. I need to promote. Come lose to me so I can go play for money. All right. Well, we're over an hour. Keen, thank you so much. Let's do this again, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Oh, let's raid someone. I'm gonna find someone to raid, and then we'll send everyone out on their merry way. If I can figure out how to raid. Bumpa creator dashboard.
We're that much closer, Bonk.
Raid channel. Filter StarCraft before everyone realized Tangi is still on. Yeah, go say hi to Artosis. We're gonna raid Artosis in 10 seconds. And I apologize for what you're about to witness.
Shark, squeaky shark.
He looks like he's in a really good mood at the moment. Bye.